This year saw Green Week getting back to basics, with a focus on what's arguably our most vital natural resource, water.
We still have today on this planet too many people that have no daily access to drinking water.
And we need to treat it with care. For the next few days, we will be talking about water.
Without managing key natural assets and resources in a more sustainable manner, the economy, the environment and the livelihoods will suffer across the globe.
Our policy has been a disaster. The groundwater quality in Europe, essentially in most intensive agricultural areas, has been very, very poor.
40% of the water footprint in Europe is outside of Europe.
At the Green Week exhibition, stand holders were on hand to explain their latest innovations in the field of water conservation. A welcome ray of sunshine greeted delegates as they arrived for the second day of Green Week. Inside the building, Connie Hedegaard, the European Commissioner for Climate Action, reminded everyone why getting water policy right was so important.
Now the theme for this Green Week is water, and the water system is of course the most vulnerable sector.
Water shortage will be one of the biggest challenges in years to come.
Delegates here heard that covering up soil with tarmac and buildings can disrupt the natural evaporation of water, reducing vital rainfall.
As soon as you build up the coastal areas, you kill the summer storms around the Mediterranean.
Back in the main amphitheatre, delegates discussed the complex links between natural water resources and other parts of the ecosystem.
Water cannot be managed in isolation. Most of the pressures on the aquatic ecosystem are coming from the terrestrial ecosystem.
Gremlins appear to have infiltrated the building during the lunch break, causing a certain amount of PowerPoint embarrassment for speakers at this session on sustainable water management.
The report, good. I think one has to start speaking and then the system gets serious.
But the bugs were soon fixed and normal service resumed.
The world is heading towards a catastrophe of having about 60% of a gap in water demand.
This session discussed the need for African countries to get to grips with the problem of water scarcity.
For many years in my own country, water was never seen as a priority, and therefore the budget of water was about the least in the priority.
And there was a definite party atmosphere on Wednesday night as delegates celebrated 20 years of the EU's Life Environment programme. But it was back to work in earnest on Thursday. This session discussed the role water policy should play at next month's Rio+20 talks on sustainable development.
We have water as one of the key elements, but I think it's also important to understand that we're not saying silos.
Delegates here looked at ways the EU's cohesion funds could be better used to improve water quality in poorer member states.
It's very important to persuade the governments to allocate more resources for water management.
And following on from the previous night's festivities, this session took stock of the LIFE programme at 20.
The big strength of the LIFE programme is in its implementation of policy.
And this discussion looked at ways of ensuring unwanted chemicals don't make their way into our drinking water.
It doesn't matter where you live, which country you're from, we all have the same challenges with these types of supplies. They're exactly the same across the world.
This session looked at efforts to create new synergies between the EU's environmental and agricultural policies.
For our part, and on behalf of the Commissioner in charge of agriculture, I can assure you that we think about the environment every day, and not only during Green Week.
The sun continued to shine for the final day of proceedings. The morning began with a wrap-up session for the EU Water Conference, which had been running throughout Green Week.
We don't have very many new people, so we better have the new ideas.
The demand for water is expected to grow by 40% by 2030.
The price of water, you only know when the well is dry.
And there was one very welcome face, Environment Commissioner Janez Potočnik, who'd been unavoidably detained at the European Parliament in Strasbourg for most of the week.
Focus on using water smartly, focus on quantity and quality of water. I think water efficiency is absolutely something which should be in our mind.
And with the Commissioner's tour around the exhibition over, it was time for the closing session.
As a young guy, much more concerned about ensuring that in 30 years, and 40 years, and 50 years from now, the whole European community will still have a sustainable water supply.
By 2050, 3.9 billion people, more than 40% of the then world's population, are likely to be living then, 2050, in river basins facing severe water stress.
Particularly in the area of water, there are increasing stress factors, and not just here in Europe, but also worldwide.
However difficult the tasks ahead may appear, we have no choice. We must rise to the challenge. Without water, there is no environment. Without water, there is no economy. And without water, there is no life.
As delegates headed home, many will have been hoping that this week's debates and discussions will have opened the floodgates on a torrent of new ideas to bring along to next year's meeting.